Happy New Year, Denise.
Cheers. I don't have anything to cheer with.
No cheersers.
Cheers with my phone, I guess.
Yeah.
Cheers.
You could. I'm sure. Sure they have apps for that. You pull up the little champagne thing. Yeah.
We cheered with a cup of grapes last night.
We did.
That's
We did
how
the
we
12.
did it.
The 12 grapes.
I thought you were gonna say the 12 Mexican grapes.
I almost did.
But it's a nice tradition that I've had that tradition since I can remember in my house. So if you're a Latino family, I don't know if it's like all Latinos or just Mexicans. So fact checked me, somebody over there, but we usually have 12 grapes at the end of the night that we eat. It's just a moment to reminisce on the goodness of the Lord and just kind of being thankful and wish for new things for the year, or like not necessarily wish, but just like things that you hope to see in the new year. Yeah,
we didn't do any of that. We just ate the grapes.
I did. I told my kids to do that. Yeah. I assigned my kids to do that. I don't know. You were defining gravity.
All I did was eat the grapes. That's all I did.
You were still defining gravity at that moment.
Maybe I was. Redefining gravity.
Yep. But it was cool. It was fun. This year we actually did not go to see any fireworks.
Nope.
It was the first year since the last couple of years we did that. Mm-hmm. We kind of scouted around and just kind of drove around the area. And so the first year we were here in Texas, it actually surprised us because we actually were just moving in. Like, we got here when, like, the 29th? No.
Yeah, I think.
No, we left Alabama
on
the 29th. And we got to Texas like the 30th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we got here on the 30th. We spent all day that 30th and the 31st unloading the trucks. And it was an absolute nightmare.
Yes.
And then on the evening of the 31st, that's when we were returning the trucks, the U-Haul trucks. Yeah. And it was, you just go and you drop them off, you take pictures, you go through that whole thing. It's a process, takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever to take all the pictures and upload everything through the app and all of that. And that was all happening like as we were approaching midnight, and I wasn't even thinking about the fact that it was New Year's.
I just kept seeing there was a lot of people in the streets and stuff, and I was just like, what are people doing? And I kept hearing like fireworks, but it did not like dawn on me that it was the end of the year. Yeah, because we were just like, we were done with the whole move, because it's like, I think we had no concept of time
anymore. We were just no sleep, just nothing. And it was
because we left later than we had expected because it took us time to load the trucks. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that you don't know how much stuff you have until you have to take it all out of the house. Mm-hmm. That's when you actually know how much stuff you have. Mm-hmm. And I mean, again, it was just not all of our stuff. It was, but it was crazy. And then when we were unloading boxes of the truck and stuff and just kind of getting stuff in the house and where everything needed to go, it's kind of like we were tired because we had drove.
Yeah, but not even that. It was, we ended up having to get a hotel room that night because the weather ended up being so terrible.
Yes,
we couldn't keep driving, and so we got a hotel room, slept for like a few hours, and then drove the rest of the way. Mm-hmm. And then when we got to the house, there was nothing. Like there was no water, there was no electricity. Yeah, there was nothing. So that was weird, and we couldn't do anything that we needed to do.
And then the house was so cold. I remember that one thing, that the house, I mean, I guess when there's a house that is empty and it has not been lived in, it's just cold. So
and then with the New Year's holiday and everything, it was hard to like get anybody to come out. Someone had to actually come to the house to turn stuff on. And it was just, that was the whole thing, right? So we just had no concept of time.
Exactly.
And then I remember I was finishing up the process in like the app of loading everything up, and Elijah came over to me as I was finishing up, and he was like, "Dad," like, and I thought he needed something. I was like, "Hold on, buddy," because my head was just, I need to get this done because I'm done with this.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Dad," I'm like, hold on. He's like, "No, Dad, come here." And then he just gave me a hug and he was like, Happy New Year. And I was like, Happy New Year? I was like, what are you talking about?
What?
And it was like 12:04.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that it was even happening. Just
exactly.
Nothing. But that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And then the year after, we ended up driving around the city and just seeing the fireworks and stuff, which was fun. They do happen to have a lot of fireworks nearby.
Yeah, they go a little bit crazy here.
They do go a little crazy. That was fun. But yeah, definitely not this year. We just kind of sat down, and I think a lot of people did what we did. We just kind of sat down, and Wicked came out yesterday, so
on Prime,
yeah, to stream it. So we were like, we're gonna watch it. Yeah. So we kind of watched it and then just proceed to celebrate.
Yeah.
The new year, which was fun.
Yeah. So 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let me just take a moment and say thank you to everyone who was with us in the journey with last year as we started the podcast and everything. I've heard a lot of people that every once in a while I get a message and they're like, "Oh my God, I was watching the podcast and I love it. It makes me laugh." I'm glad to hear that people get joy out of like what we have. And then I have a few friends who are married to Americans, or just like they're not married within their own culture. They have what do they call those, interracial marriages, and it's cool because they can relate.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that and hear about that, and just we're here for you guys to just be a blessing and just get a little slice of the community.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys.
Yeah, and hoping for this year to be awesome. I know this year's gonna be awesome for everyone, and just excited for the journey ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have to say that on our Christmas episode that we did last week, and I did my rant about how glitter is the worst part about Christmas, I do want to say that I got some good support, some backing.
I saw somebody sent us a video of like this gentleman got a present from his sister-in-law, and I don't know if you ended up watching it or not, but she got him like a Lowe's bucket. And his gift was at the bottom of the bucket, and gave him a spoon so that he could dig out his gift. And the bucket was full of glitter.
Oh my gosh. I didn't see that.
And he ended up getting covered with glitter and stuff, and he was mad for sure, but then he had like the glitter somehow had gotten stuck in his skin so bad.
Yeah, no.
I was like,
it's what it does.
God. No, I know.
The glitter did exactly what it was supposed to do. It did its job perfectly.
And then for I don't know how many hours it took them, but he was getting like, his wife had a vacuum and was like vacuuming glitter out of his like clothes and everything. Yep, it's a nightmare.
I swear,
I'm not saying that it's not bad, but I still love glitter.
Don't ever do that to me. I swear.
No,
if I ever get,
I don't think I would ever. Do
somebody
that.
was talking about those glitter bombs. That like somebody can send you a gift and it's like a glitter bomb, and you open it up and you think you're getting a nice present, and it just glitter everywhere.
Blitter.
I swear, blitter. I swear. Oh my God, I'd be so mad. I
am so thoughtful about your hate of glitter that I was shopping for some bags for presents, and I was with Elijah. And I was like, I need a bag for this present I got your dad. And he's like, okay. And the first bag he picked up, there was some glitter. And I was like, no, we can't give him that one. That has some glitter. It might be a problem.
Thank you.
so, I do love you. I hear your rant and your hatred towards glitter. I'm still going to be a team glitter person, but I will not, impose that on you. Just saying.
I mean, look. I think
more power to you.
I think on average, just an average, I'm not putting stereotypes on people, but on average, I would say women are more into glitter than men are. Of
course.
And
girls like shiny things. Glitter is shiny. We like sparkle. That's just one of those beautiful things that the Lord has bestowed upon us.
I have no problem with the fact that it's shiny and sparkly. My problem is that it's the worst and it just gets in stuff and doesn't come out. And then we're in July and I'm still finding Christmas glitter in my socks and stuff.
No, you're not.
In the carpet.
Nope.
Like, why is there glitter?
Yeah.
I swear.
Yeah.
I'm over it.
Your high pitch tells on you.
Yeah.
Yep. I get it. But I mean 2025 is a good year to start a good close that page and just start a new chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, so 2025. Any thoughts, any predictions for this year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about predictions, but I was gonna say I like love and hate the beginning of the year. Unpopular opinion, because I love that we are starting a new season and it's like closing the year and stuff. But I hate the trap of thinking that like, oh, I'm going to make these resolutions and like I'm going to do this for this year, because I think that unless you have developed certain disciplines in your life, those are just going to go out the window like within the first month. Like you're not even going to touch them.
Yeah.
So I'm more of a firm believer in recognizing the season that you're in and setting goals or objectives that you want to accomplish based on that season, and work through that as you go.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't have to be something that you have to always start at the beginning or at the end of the year, but that is something that you should develop in your life just consistently. So
and making sure that the goals are reasonable, like that they're meaningful goals, but that they're actually things that you can accomplish.
Yeah.
And there's not just pie in the sky, pipe dream, wish type stuff, but like actual goals that you want to accomplish. And then I think that in order to actually accomplish those things, you need to start like setting smaller goals, like to reach those goals. So you say like, this is my goal, like this year or whatever, I want to accomplish this. So then you start to think, what are the steps that I need to take in order to accomplish that, so that I can do a little bit, whether it's daily or weekly or whatever it is, like to actually work toward that thing, and just being practical with stuff. Because as you said, otherwise we just end up with these kind of random expectations that we start off doing well. Now, if it's the kind of if it's the kind of thing where it's just like, I want to floss every day, or I want to like what something like that, that's more of a habit
that you
changing thing.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different, because that's not something you really want to accomplish. It's kind of
you want to
an adjustment to your routine or whatever. That's different.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely that's different. And I think it just maybe developing a proper perspective on things that you accomplish in your everyday life, like living purposely. I think that is very important. And I do think that, we should always be doing that, to be quite honest. But I do think that sometimes we can kind of like fall off the wagon and forget about it, because we get busy, things take place, and then you can fall into like a specific routine, and then certain things take priority over others. And but I think it's one of those things that we really have to be intentional and thoughtful of what are the priorities. So I think I do think at the beginning of the year, even like as a family, it's always good to maybe take time to look at your yearly calendar, or the next 3 months. If you don't have certain activities like set up that you're going to have throughout the year, really like recognize, like, I think for a few years now we've been doing this, and it just kind of started, like, we just kind of started doing it, and it's definitely been helpful for our family. Like, we try to make sure that we live with setting things on the calendar and kind of share them obviously, you know, Elijah's at that place where he's older, that he has certain things that are necessary for him to be in the calendar.
Yeah.
And just having them as a family and share them, like, it helps making sure that we are taking time to stay connected, you know, and then things don't clash, that, you know, when do I need to be where, you know, obviously as parents, you set up your kids' appointments and stuff like that, like share them, because I do think that because we live in such an age of technology and all this, it's easy to just kind of become unintentional about it, or become very like focused on what you have on your plate, and there could be a separation or I love this word and I can never say it in English, bro. It's bad.
What word?
Like compartimientos, you know, like separations, where it's like, this is my part of the pie and that's yours, and I really don't know what's happening on your side. But yet, if there's a conflict, then it really becomes a conflict.
Right.
And I think that robs joy and like, it's unnecessary drama that does not need to take place. So if we consider everything that everybody has to do, and I guess even like put down and say, okay, these are non-negotiables. Like these are things that we are going to do that are non-negotiable, and set them, you know, on paper or on your phone or something, and share them, that really does help develop a good, harmonious, like, how would you call it? Like expectation, you know, like for throughout the week, and then you're not feeling like you're like just kind of thrown things at the very last minute, and it just I think that takes away some of the pressure that can take place in a family. Like even for your kids, you know, like if you help them have that organization or that understanding. I do understand that there's people that are like a certain type of personality, and it's like, this is how I organize my life and I'm good with it, but not everybody's like that population. Like I know I'm an organizer, but I know that there's things that I can't, like, they just don't function for me. Like I have my own way of organizing things, because I'm in, you know, the norm or whatever, that doesn't work for me. So recognizing that and being able to share it, but also helping your children to recognize that there's a certain order of things. I think that definitely helps remove stress of our lives that does not need to be there.
Yeah, when you mentioned kid, you know, with stuff that we do with our kids, when it comes to our kids, I've been thinking a lot about this lately, just as far as consistency and how important it is for your kids to have consistency. I mean, in terms of discipline, in terms of all kinds of stuff, but particularly in the area of discipline, I think, you know, making sure that there's a consistency there. And they need structure, you know. And a lot of times they would say, or they would act like they don't want that. They don't want discipline, they don't want structure, they don't want these different things. They'd rather just kind of do whatever and live their life, and, you know, have just no restrictions and all of that. But deep down they know, even though they probably wouldn't articulate it, they know that they need it. And so, you know, I've been kind of evaluating, thinking about areas just in my life and the way that I, you know, do things with our kids and stuff, like how I can improve in those areas, and just make sure that they're getting that consistency in those areas, like in the area of discipline, but also just in the things like we do, like I think our kids are still young enough where, you know, like helping them develop spiritual disciplines and things of that nature, you know. And
and I think it's good for them to understand that you don't just arrive at certain things. There's a process to becoming good at something. There's a process to excel, or to excel in different areas.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, I think sometimes I've noticed this, and I'm not sure when this change happened, but I get the sense that a lot of kids just kind of feel like people just arrive being amazing at something. And it's kind of like, I'm not saying that there's no cases of people that are like super talented, that they were just like
a savant.
Yeah, like amazing at that, like from the get-go. There's many stories about that, but that's just a certain percentage.
Right.
It's not everybody. That's not the norm. That's just like something that happens there. And that those, let's celebrate those, but let's also celebrate the work that takes to become good at something. And like you say, like teaching them the balance of discipline and how when you're developing in different areas of expertise, there's seasons where you might not have so much fun at doing that one thing because you're in a process of growing in it. So then you get to that sweet spot when it's like, oh man, this is awesome, because you're really succeeding at it. But in reality, there was a process that got you there. And we can many times kind of ignore that. Yeah. And it's good to help them see that even like we as adults, that we don't have that all together, that we are working in that as well. Yeah. Because I don't know. I think that when I was younger, there were times where I had this assumption that like my parents they just knew, like they just got there. I don't know how they got there, but they got it. And then as I'm becoming an adult myself, I'm like, well, I don't feel like I got it. Yeah. Like I don't feel like there yet, you know? Sure. And I heard something this week in an interview, this actress, and she's turning 40, right? And I maybe it spoke to me because I'm getting close to that. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, I still feel like when I was in my 20s, like I don't feel like all of a sudden I've arrived at being an adult and being, amazing at all these things. And she was just saying that something that she started doing, she started talking more about, I'm turning I'm turning 40. Yeah, it's great. I'm turning 40. And just that her attitude has just kind of become more like, I feel settled. Right. Like I'm confident in who I am, and I can, whatever comes, I'm at that place where I have matured, I have walked life, I've gone through things, and I can face them. And I thought that was such a profound statement, but I feel like that applies to any age. Just having that recognition that it doesn't have to look in a specific way. But you do just have that sense within yourself that, like, I'm exactly where I need to be right now, and I'm capable to be awesome at it.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, when I'm in a room with adults, I feel like I'm the youngest person there. Yeah. I feel like I'm not. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I really don't. But it's just that whatever that switch is hasn't clicked. Because I remember being a kid and looking at people who were my age now, so in their 30s, and thinking like, oh, these people are grown ups. These people are adults, and I just don't feel like I'm a grown up. The other thing that comes into my mind a lot is how much adults, like grown ups,
feel that way, maybe.
But how much so many people are like really immature, like grown-ups that are really immature, and that I feel like it's almost the professional side of adulthood is an act. Like it's a show. Yeah. Like putting on a suit and going to the office and being an executive and being like whatever it is that you do, right? I feel like a lot of it for a lot of people, like that's them putting on an act, and the real them, because if you get a bunch of, I mean,
30-year-olds
men alone in a room, they're going to start talking about the most ridiculous stuff,
like
and making fun of each other, talking about dumb stuff and just being ridiculous, and to varying degrees, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? And then we go from that to, and then, you know, of course there's those that are, you know, like to get off of work and just get drunk and act crazy and all that kind of stuff. And then we go from that to being back like, hey, Bob, good morning, back in the office on Monday morning. Like none of it ever happened.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the kind of fake part, because nobody really wants that. I mean, not nobody. There are people that are really into their career, like really invested, and it really is the real them. But I just feel like the whole adult persona is kind of fake for a lot of people, and most people are really like a kid in their heart, and just want to goof off and be silly. Not everybody does,
I think that sometimes we like have a tendency to take ourselves too seriously, and we kind of forget that like we have the ability to just be like lighthearted. And I think that that's something that we definitely have to keep in mind. Like even with your kids, I think that sometimes as parents we can kind of get out of balance and just like think that our kids just need to see and receive like our discipline and our strength and this and that. But I think that that's just a one-sided. Just in, you know, the past couple of years, like I really realized that I want my kids to receive my discipline. I don't know why it's making me get emotional, but I want them to feel and receive from me that joy as well. I want them to see me laugh with them and laugh at things that bring that lightheartedness in your life. And like I love my parents, and I know they raised me the best to their ability with what they have. But if there was one thing that I wish, and not that I didn't have it, because I have memories of it, one thing that I really wish I could have more, or that makes me feel like I want to go back to being a kid, it's those moments when we will like laugh and have joy, and just like it felt like time around us was not existent. Like we were caught in that moment, and we just had harmony and love and laughter, and it just like we were maybe in a bubble, like a small bubble of a moment, you know. And I think sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional about it.
That's okay.
But I do think that today, like our kids really need that as well. Like they do need my words of discipline and my words of when they're not living up to the standard, and not even like the standard's not even my standard. It's the standard of what's best for them. And that even in that, like that they can also experience mom and dad in the laughter. That they can experience mom and dad even if there's sorrow. Because I think that that's what's valuable. You know what I mean? Like whenever is the time that God assigns for me not to be present in my kid's life, what I want them to remember is I want them to have those key elements of memories and things that is gonna make them be better. And I really don't like this expression, but I just don't know which other way to say it. Be better human beings. You know what I mean? Like that I have added to them developing their character, that I added to them to become better friends and better husbands, better co-workers. You know, that value, that is precious. You know, in the eyes of God, that they'll have memories of sharing time, praying, time laughing, time, you know, joking or talking about things that are maybe uncomfortable, but that we find answers together. Like all those things, I think that's the weight of saying, man, this is what it's about. This is why God intended it for me to have this family. This is what he intended for them, for this time, like I was made for this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that those moments of just fun and lightheartedness that you're talking about, those are huge. Those are huge. I think those really stick with you when you get older, you know? And I think that another thing is being careful with your kids, because I know, like right now, like we have a teenager and there's a lot of stuff, like there's a lot of times where we're having to correct, and of course with our younger kids too, and it's an ongoing thing, but it's like a lot of things that you're correcting and in a sense criticizing, like constructively, hopefully. But how important it is with our kids to make sure that we're praising more than we're criticizing, that we're building up more than we're correcting even. And it could be hard sometimes, because sometimes there's a lot of things, like there's several things that you're correcting. So you've got to, especially, you know, if you're raising a child who has a lot of disciplinary issues, a lot of rough edges, a lot of disobedience, a lot of whatever, you might feel like you're constantly having to correct and this and that. And so in those cases, I think you've got to look extra hard, and it might be difficult, but you've got to look extra hard to find things to praise. And so little things like your kid held the door open for somebody when they were walking out of the store. Your kid just did some, like a little thing that you would just, maybe it would just normally go unnoticed. I think you've got to look for the gold. You've got to, because you've got to find things to balance out the correction. Otherwise, your kid, even though you might absolutely be doing it from a place of love, which is important, because we don't want to discipline out of anger. We don't want to discipline out of emotion. We want to discipline because it's what's needed and it's what's right for my child, because it's going to help them to grow, to mature, to become the things that you're saying. But so it's important not to just let things go because, oh, I've disciplined too much today. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you pick your battles and whatever. That's fine. You got to find balance there too. But it's important to balance those things out so that they know that they're doing some things right too. Otherwise, they just start to develop this thing in their psyche, in the back of their head, that's like, oh, I'm always getting corrected. I'm never doing anything right. And it can kind of break their spirit over time.
I think that sometimes we have to, and I sometimes am terrible at it. I sometimes can become very good at managing. I'm managing my kids instead of, not that I stop loving them. I don't stop loving them when I'm managing them, but I recognize that they're and the Holy Spirit's really good at reminding me of when I'm doing that. Because like you said, if I'm trying to discipline, it comes from this place of like frustration. And that's when I'm like, hold up. Like no.
Well, to be fair, we need to probably find a better balance, because I just think, because of my personality, and I don't think I do it on purpose, but I let too many things maybe fall to you sometimes. And to where I don't know, maybe it comes more naturally to you to do the managing thing. And to me, it's more natural to just like, whatever. like they'll figure it out kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an area that you could probably come down some and I could come up some. We can meet each other in the middle. So it's a little bit more balanced in terms of the way things are presented. I was listening to this conversation that somebody was having, and it was I related to it because he was like, so with what I just said, I think that's true. But this guy was talking about how the dads a lot of times are more willing to kind of let their kids suffer than moms are. Like moms don't like to see their kids suffering at all. And then the way he described the example he gave, I was like, oh yeah, that's absolutely true. I think in our relationship and what I've seen is because you're very willing to correct and to like jump in there and to discipline kind of like immediately. And you have that willingness to do, and you've been very vocal with our kids about, hey dudes, like I'm not your friend. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to get you to like me. I'm here to help you to mature and to become men and to get you prepared for life and all of that. And I really admire that about you, that you're so willing to do that. But this guy, he was talking about how in terms of like suffering, moms never want to see their kids suffer, and dads are kind of a little bit more willing to understand that suffering, like some suffering in controlled environments, some suffering is actually good for you. So like if our kids come in and they're like, oh, like I'm hungry, you're kind of like quick to be like Duke, you got to feed your kids, or Duke, you got to do this or whatever. And I'm like, hey, actually they're going to be fine if they don't eat. Like if they have to wait a couple hours till dinner, they're going to be totally good. And it's going to be fine. And it's actually probably going to help them because they're going to eat, they're going to enjoy their dinner more and whatever. And actually being hungry is this thing that you're like, nobody likes that feeling of being hungry, but it's actually probably good for us to be hungry sometimes. Like to spend a portion of the day being hungry, like it's actually probably good for us. So things like that are just kind of like the differences I think between moms and dads and stuff like that I think are ultimately what make it work. You know?
I don't think that there's a perfect way to all get it all together. Definitely it's not. But I do think that there's like it's a growing process. And like you say, we have 2 kids in different stages of their life, right? Mm-hmm. So one is he's at that place where he's developing his own self-independence, and he's testing how good am I at calling the shots. And there's a certain balance of realizing you're not quite there yet. You have been given tools that you can use to call the shots in your life, but at the end of the day you're not quite there yet, so you have to still let mom and dad call the shots. And so there's this thing in culturally different, don't come at me, don't come after me, I'm not trying to be mean, but that I've always noticed in the American culture, that when a child becomes of a certain age, there's a certain sense of what would you call it? What would be the best word? It's kind of like when the mother eagle kind of like takes the what do you call it, pigeon, or like the baby eagle takes it out of the nest and says, here, fly on your own. I did not grow up with that, because in my culture you do become an adult, but there's not such a thing as the door is shut behind you. This is always your home.
Right.
This is always your safe place. You're always welcome here. Whether you're 18 or whether you're 65. If mom and dad are still alive, you'll always have a home here. So I think that because of that, there's a lot of times where I'm not so afraid of like calling them out right now, because I recognize that it might hurt right now, and not to their face. Like they might not see or think like, oh, that really hurt mom. Like mom didn't feel right or didn't feel good having to call me out. But I can walk away and like go in my own place and really like feel it.
Right.
You know, where I'm like, I did not want it to do that. That was very uncomfortable, or that was not. Because I still like, because I'm still young, I still remember and recognize how, as a son or as a daughter,
right,
that feels. But I can also now see from the other side, as a parent,
right,
to recognize what is needed. And it's a balance, you know, between how far do I go to set you up for success. And I know that like my experience has been, and I'm grateful for it, that I'm always gonna be my daddy's little girl.
Yeah.
I can always come back to dad and just be daddy's little girl. And I can always go back to mom and be that. Even though I'm a little girl with her own family, with her own kids to take care of. But I have that same place. And culturally here, it's very different in the sense that I do see, you know, parents that are like so quick to like, oh, I can't wait for them to be on their own.
Yeah, turn 18,
and
get out.
Like I'm excited. I'm excited for what Elijah is gonna do and how he's gonna grow up to be at that point. But at the same time, I don't feel like my responsibility has finished at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm always gonna be mom, and I'm always gonna be here. Now, how we engage and whether if there's a need for discipline or not, because I mean, somebody might be like, well, you should be ashamed of that, but I'm not gonna be ashamed. I've been corrected by my parents in my 30s, in my 20s.
Yeah.
When my mom and dad see a failure in character or something that is just not right, they still don't have that place of honor to be able to say, hey, honey, listen.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not sure about this. One, because they are my parents because of position, but also, I think also because I welcome that. And I think sometimes when we grow up, we can, without realizing, close that door just because we think, oh, I'm out of the house, I'm done with that, so I don't need to be listening to that. And we forget that that's honor. That's where honor begins to be proven and shown. The fact that I'm welcoming them, that those words that need to be said. Like I remember I had gone back to Mexico after finishing school in New York. And I had a disagreement with my dad. There was something where we're just not seeing eye to eye. And I packed my bags. You know, I packed my bags and I'm like, I'm a grown person. I don't need this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know. And this has been very vulnerable because my mom is like wailing her eyes out because, you know, we're arguing. Yeah. Like me and dad are arguing. And on one side, this is her husband, and on the other side, this is her daughter, right? So she doesn't want to see us fighting, but we just couldn't come to agreement on anything. And I'm like packing my bags, and I'm like, I don't care where I'm going. I'm leaving. Yeah. Like I'm out. Because in my mind, all I can see and all I can think was this pride of, I'm an adult. Right. I call the shots in my life. You do not need to be telling me what to do. And he wasn't telling me something that was detrimental for me, but I recognize now as I see the situation that I had pride in my heart and I wasn't willing to hear or listen. Yeah. So my dad stepped out of the house and, you know, I'm like sitting on the couch, very like, you know, adult and like all put together, and I have my bags and everything. And he had left. So I'm just sitting there with my mom, and my mom's just talking with me and just trying to tell me to calm down. She's like, okay, it's okay. If you want to leave, that's okay. But at least leave calm.
Mm-hmm.
Do not leave in this state of emotion. So I agreed. I was like, okay, all right. So, the hours went by. That suitcase sit there. I didn't go absolutely nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed there at home. The next day, my dad had written me a, and he just put it on the table, and he had left for work or whatever. And I knew the letter was there for me, right? Because I saw my name on it. I grabbed the letter, and as I began to read it, I just broke down. Because his words were just what I needed. He was like, I'm not. He was apologizing in his letter, saying I'm sorry if I made you feel like you were not an adult. I'm sorry if I made you feel like you were not being heard of. And he was like, but this was my issue. And all he said is you made statements that hurt my heart because you were not being sensitive to God. And all you could see was you. And I want you to see what he has for you. And that just was completely pierced through that issue of pride that at that moment I had for whatever that circumstance was, And I'm grateful for my father's wisdom at the moment to recognize, we're arguing, but this is not about who's right and who's wrong.
Right.
And he made the choice at that moment to say, I'm going to step out. And because she can't hear me right now, I am going to find another way that she can hear me. And I think as parents, that's something that we have to be willing to do, because that is what I personally call this, that's you fighting for your children.
Absolutely.
And we have to do that. I have to fight for the well-being of my children in whatever way necessary, because I'm not fighting with them for their future. I have to fight the things that are around that can become an obstacle to their success.
Yeah.
And if me pushing them too quick to get out the door is actually something that can be detrimental to them, I really need to evaluate. Because at the end of the day, I think the most beautiful expression of parenting done correctly in the eyes of God is that it's who they become.
Yeah.
And what they do in the future as future parents, and all that character, that's so much more valuable than all the money I can throw at them and all the things that I can give them, and like you say, there are times where you recognize they might need to suffer right now by whether it's not having this or not being allowed to do this, but that balance is what's going to make the big difference in their life.
Yeah, that whole you're an adult when you're 18 and you got to get out of my house, that's definitely an American thing. I don't think most cultures are like that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that's the natural thing, because that's, kids get out, they go to college or whatever, and they get out, they move out, whatever. But then a lot of times kids after college, they move back for a time while they're getting, starting their career, starting whatever, looking for a job. Now, a lot of times it's getting out of college and you can't find a job, like an actual job in your field for a while. And so there's that kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of parents just have that thing in their head that it's like you're on your own, you gotta, and if it's legitimately coming from a place of I believe this is right for you, so I'm pushing you to do it, then I understand that. But a lot of times it's coming from a selfish place where it's just like I've raised you long enough and blah, blah, blah. And it's yeah, but if they're not ready yet, there's nothing that says that at a certain age, your responsibility over them comes to an end, And I think that, there's you push them, you encourage them, you what's the word I'm looking for? You advise them in a certain area and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that whole thing is in most cases a pretty ridiculous mindset. And
I think that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with you setting them to be on their own as they need to. I think that the lie behind that, it's you saying, I'm no longer responsible. I detached myself from you.
Yeah, but I mean, and even as you're saying, the whole thing with, we raise our kids and we're there in their life as a parent. And then over time, this transition kind of happens where we never stop being mom and dad, but we begin to develop a friendship. I think that friendship starts to develop while they're kids, and then it kind of, grows and grows and grows to the point that once they have reached adulthood and they are on their own and that sort of thing, it's the friendship kind of takes over a little bit of the relationship. And then the, mom and dad, going to them it's more of like going to them for advice and for counsel and for wisdom than it is, us trying to get them to obey what we're doing, because the relationship has changed at that point and it's not necessary. But like even in Colossians 3, where it talks about like children obey your parents in all things. Like, I was just doing a study on this, and the word there for children is a pretty loose word, and it can be applied to not just kids under the age of 18, but like if you are still living under the jurisdiction of your parents, or in practical terms, if you're still living under your parents' roof, then they actually, you kind of owe them your obedience. Now, they're going to, hopefully there's a healthy relationship. And so in an ideal situation, they're understanding that you're an adult, that you've reached a certain age. Hopefully there's some trust there. And they're, giving you freedom and all of that. But there should still be this honoring, as you mentioned, that takes place, which never ends, this honoring of our parents. And if you're at the point, I mean, you could be 24, 25 years old. If your parents are still like paying your bills, if they're, you're living in their house and you're not paying rent, like if it's that kind of thing where you're dependent on them, then I don't think you can have it both ways. I think you need to allow their authority to govern your life in as much as you're part of the home. You're living under their roof. So I think that this whole thing, sometimes on the kid side or on the parent side, we want to have this kind of double standard, or we want it both ways. We want them to back off and get out of our life as kids as we're becoming adults. Yeah, but you're still depending on them for all your stuff. So it's kind of not really fair for you to want everything on this side, but you're not willing to do anything on this side. And so I just think on both sides of the equation, it requires wisdom. And it requires honor to understand like what season of relationship are we in. And I think that's it can be like we're gonna inevitably cross boundaries and then have to be corrected. We're gonna cross boundaries, we're gonna do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, we're not gonna show honor where we should, and then we've got to be willing to admit fault, where we went wrong, and then kind of reset and back up and say, okay, like let's try this again. But that honor thing never stops.
Definitely. And I think that's important. I mean, it's important because a relationship is like a living being. It has to adjust and it has to grow and it has to change and everything. But I do think that sometimes we can think that like I remember having a conversation with God, and I was like, ugh, like I am so tired because I feel like they're not obeying, they're not listening, they're not this. And I remember God asking me, like, you just want them to give you like blind obedience? And I was like, well,
you're like, well, yeah. I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was my answer. I was like, well, I mean, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt if they just obey, And then it made me think about even like my relationship with God, like, right? Like, oh yeah, I can blindly obey God. But yet he doesn't ask me to blindly obey him. Because obedience with the Lord comes from a place of relationship. And it comes from that place of honor and love. And I think that that's what we want to develop with our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we start out as kids and in our relationship with God too. We start out
disobeying,
as like a lot of times you obey because you have to.
Yeah.
But ideally, it's you obey because there's trust that's been developed, and you obey through love, and you obey because there's trust, you know? So like if I'm trusting, I think as you get to be a teenager, mom said no or dad said no, it might piss me off. It might frustrate me because like, well, my friends get to do it and this and that, and like I'm missing out. But then I think there's an acceptance of but yeah, I trust them. Like they've showed me that they're
trustworthy.
They're trustworthy. Yeah. And so if they're saying no to this, it's not because they don't want me to have fun. It's not because they don't love me. It's because they see something that I don't see.
Right. Yeah. So it's evaluating those little things, you know, just every day, because it's not, you know, some days you go to bed and you're like, it was awesome. Like,
nailed it.
I nailed it being a parent today. You know, and then the next day you're like, oh my God, I'm like so done with it, or I'm tired and I just like, I don't want to do it. Like, I want to do it.
I said that to you yesterday. I remember what it was. I honestly don't remember what it was, but we were laying in bed and you like, the kids were doing something. And you just like yelled something at them, and neither one of us wanted to get up and deal with it. So you just like yelled something, and I was like, that was pretty rough parenting. But
yeah. I mean, we have those ones where you're just like, like I'm just not gonna do it right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. I don't think that's gonna send us to hell or hurt them either way, because it's not perfect. Again, it's just, and it changes. You know, it's just something that's continually changing. And I think, as parents, we really have to learn to give ourselves grace when it comes to that. That, you know, maybe what worked today might not work tomorrow.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that I stop trying, and it doesn't mean that I just kind of quit. Because I'm gonna probably say this, and it's gonna be terrible, but because there's been times where like I probably shouldn't say it, but I think I've said to my kids one time, like, I'm done. Like, you know what? I'm not mom right now anymore. Just do whatever you want. Don't ask me for anything. Yes. And I just lock myself. I'm out. But it's kind of like a shock moment for them. You're laughing because you know it's true. And somebody's going to be like, oh my God, Pastor Denise says that to her kids. Yeah. I'm not proud of it.
I'm out.
But
putting on my fluffy socks.
I'm like, I quit.
PJs.
I quit as your mom today. Like, mom's out of the office until further notice. It's right now, you can parent yourself. I'm done. Why are you laughing at me? It's happened.
Yeah.
But it shocks them. It shocks them. They just. I remember the first time that happened. Like, Elijah just kind of looked at me like, bro, is she for real? And I'm just kind of like, do with it what you can.
A few hours go by.
This is where we are right now.
Hey, where's dinner?
Like, mom, please don't quit, mom.
That's the best. Yeah, that's good.
That's the best. He said that's the best.
Yeah, that's the best.
Gosh.
It was, yeah.
Yep. Remember that one time we just grabbed Elijah? I don't think he was being bad, but it was just one of those days that we really like kind of felt like, this day can't end too soon. And it was summertime and we had a pool outside, but it was night, right? So it was maybe a little bit less warm during the day. And we just kind of, you grabbed them because I didn't grab them. Allegedly. We just threw him in the pool. He's like, oh, what just happened?
It's like you said, it's a shock. It's like, wait, what just happened? It just is so confused. Confused.
It's like, that's bye.
Yeah.
Just walk away. Get your own towel, buddy.
Yeah. It's personality adjustment, or what do you call it? It's that's not the word I'm looking for. Anyway, yeah, just a shock to the system sometimes.
Sometimes you need a shock to the system. I mean, it doesn't have to be big, but you know. And it really, I mean, when I say those things, I'm not really, I know that I'm still mom.
Sure.
Even after I close the door and decide to just take some me time, I'm still mom. I have not stopped loving them.
Sure.
I just need a moment to deal with my own stuff. You know, deal with my own emotions. Because a lot of times we bring our own emotions into parenting. And we bring our own things into it. And I made a decision very early in my motherhood where I realized, like, I don't want to make my kids paid for hurts that they did not cause me.
Yeah.
You know?
Man.
I mean, did those hurt take place, and was that unfortunate? Like, yeah. But I don't want them to suffer for that. I mean, I've made that decision within my marriage, and I think that that's something that is a decision that you should make in every area of your life. Like my friends today, like I don't want my friends of today to have to suffer for, you know, the mistrust that someone else cost me. I want to put my best foot forward. You know, even with my coworkers, like I know work relationships can be difficult at times, but I want to make sure that I don't let a certain cycle continue just because I'm in that rut. And we should be more for growing and kind of healing those things instead of just letting them stay there and allow other things to cause more harm to them. And when they're not maybe even, you know, harina la misma masa, or like we say. You're just looking at me like, I don't know what that is, but okay, yeah.
I know what it means.
Yeah.
I know what those words mean, in other words. But
it was a very Mexican saying.
Yeah. So, Denise.
Yes.
Any predictions for 2025? Are we going to get aliens?
Oh gosh.
Is Jesus coming back? Is AI taking over the world?
I think we're going to see a lot of regulations that of different things that maybe before we were we didn't have before, or so we didn't think we have, but we do have, and that they are in place. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think AI is going to take over the world. I just think that they have been slowly allowing people to use it at free will and stuff to kind of get it to a certain level. And then once we get to that level, then we're going to see certain changes take place to regulate it or do this or do that.
There's a crazy thing that happened. I'm kind of changing the subject, but a crazy thing. Do you know who Vexbolts is? Is a creator. Is like a TikToker. And anyway, so this guy Vexbolts, he's the guy that started that the whole let him cook thing. You know that you hear it on a lot of like videos, the whole like let him cook, that audio. No. Okay. Anyway, so
no,
you would know it if you heard, I swear.
Probably.
But anyway, he started that, and he's done a bunch of other stuff too, but that's the thing that he's most famous for. So I don't know how it started, where it came from, but this whole campaign started that they were everybody was gonna just unfollow him at midnight, like last night. So so going into the new year, and the idea was we're leaving the Let Him Cook guy in 2024.
Interesting.
And so anyway, he actually got behind it, and then he started, having fun with it. And like Mr. Beast got involved, and like they did all this stuff. So I think he was somewhere at like 1 point something, under 2 million followers on TikTok. And then from the time that they started this campaign to like this mass defollowing campaign, he actually grew to over 8 million followers in like a really short time, because all these people were following him just so they could unfollow him. And so there was like this mass defollowing of this guy. And so one of my predictions is that that's going to become a normal thing. That there's going to be that for some reason people are going to, because here's what happens.
That's a new cancel culture?
Not cancel culture, but where I think that I just think that we're going to start seeing that.
The new social movement.
That people are going to, like, they're going to take creators that got, super famous because of one thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you had, I'm trying to think of a good example. One of the biggest trends this year was the demure trend. And what happens is we get our social media culture is so crazy. Like we go all in on something for like 4 to 6 weeks. And then we completely move on to the next thing, right? So we get into these trends, and I just wonder if this is going to become a trend where social media just kind of has like this hype up, and then you just get over it real quick, and then everybody unfollows.
So was there a timeline for them to unfollow? Like they were supposed to unfollow this guy like New Year's Eve, and then what? Then after that, what?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 11:59 p.m. on New Year's Eve. But of course, that's going to have variation because people are in different time zones.
Yeah.
So I was actually talking to Elijah about it last night, and I was like, so he was 8.5 million or so followers, which went crazy. I was like, my assumption, what's going to happen is about half of his followers are going to leave, and he's still going to end up with way more followers than he had before. So he's still just going to be an awesome creator. But he's actually saying that he's killing the account. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But I don't know, because so I looked at it today just for fun, and he was down to about 3 million. So I mean, 5 million people left him in like a matter of 12 hours. Yeah. So it's probably, I'm sure that number's going to come down a little bit more, but I don't think he's going to lose everybody, but I don't know what he's going to do. It's so crazy though that happened. And I could just see that happening. I could just see that as the kind of thing where people just, I don't know how the word spreads and all of that, but where somebody just starts something and then it just
goes like
catches fire. Yeah. And then everybody just decides to like, hey, we're just gonna, we're gonna all just leave whoever, whoever it is that they're just kind of tired of, or just to be funny or whatever they're trying to do. It's kind of crazy, but I feel like that's a trend that we're probably going to see more of.
We're going
to
see more often this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely think that even within the culture of like the influencer culture, I think that there's changes that are taking place. I don't know. I know with the whole thing that we're saying about like, was it canceling or selling TikTok or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Yes. TikTok might be done on January 20th.
Right. So,
but I don't,
I don't know. I don't know how's that gonna.
I think they're at least gonna postpone it, but I don't know if they're gonna be able to save it or not. Trump has said some kind of, not cryptic, but he's kind of said some vague things about, maybe trying to save it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I mean, just basically because I know with with the whole influencer culture, like that's how some people are paying their bills. It's like for some people, this is like a job. Like this is a job.
Oh yeah.
And then if you take away the platform where that's their job, like that's obviously gonna affect a certain level of economy. So
yeah. I mean, there's definitely influencers that are just TikTokers, and the majority of their following is on TikTok. A lot of creators, they have followings elsewhere, so people, if they like the creator, they'll migrate to the other platform with them. I think if TikTok does close, it opens up a new realm of possibility. Like, what's gonna replace it? What's gonna be the next thing? Is it gonna be an offshoot from an existing social media platform, or is it gonna be something totally new? You know, yeah. So we'll kind of see. I think if it does shut down, I think it opens up doors for people, though. Like more doors of opportunity for, maybe like a new platform. And whenever there's a new platform, it always starts out, people, anybody who's on it creating quality content at the beginning has an opportunity to get a huge bump quickly because it's new.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll see. I kind of hope it doesn't go away because I like it, but at the same time, I kind of wouldn't be that upset if it does, because it's got a lot of problems in terms of the way it works. The spyware, the user agreement is insane, and the access that you give TikTok to your phone, to your keystrokes, to it's an insane level of invasion of privacy.
Right.
That we've agreed to because we like the platform. It's actually, and I'm very, very surprised, but just to be honest, it's actually my favorite social media platform. It's just such low maintenance. You just get on there. I mean, it's probably the most addictive, which is not good. But it's, I don't know. It's just the tools, like the things you can do with it, the tools, and how easy it is, how simple it is to post without like nonsense. It's very, very simple to use. And so I've just grown to like it. But yeah, we'll see.
All right. I don't know. Is there any other predictions you have for this year?
Not real ones. Not real ones. I think that okay, here's a couple sports predictions. I think the New York Mets are going to make it to the World Series, and Juan Soto is going to win the MVP. For the National League, and the Yankees are gonna feel like morons for
crap.
Yeah.
That's for what they did. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I'll leave it at that. I was gonna make a Giants prediction, but what's the point? You know what I'm saying? What's the point right now?
Okay.
There is one cool thing that's going on right now.
So is there any major things that are supposed to happen in this 2025? Like any major sports or any major like things. So wait, is 2025 a leap year?
No, this year was a leap year.
So 2024 was leap year. So this year we'll just go back to. So all those people that were born on February 29, they just don't get a birthday anymore.
Yeah,
they just
next. Yeah.
What happens? They just they only celebrate every 4 years?
Yeah, every 4 years they get a birthday.
So it's like they don't age.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got parents who are not psychopaths, they'll celebrate your birthday on February 28th or April 1st, or I mean March 1st. But
you just erased a whole month there.
Yeah, I think New Year's used to be on April 1st or something like that. And I think that's where the term April Fools came from. I might be totally butchering this. That's where the April Fools came from. Because you think about it, like back then, like hundreds of, I don't even know when it was, but a very long time ago, there was no internet. There was nothing. Right. So word just kind of had to spread over time by word of mouth. And then, word would slowly kind of make its way to other cities and all that. I've never seen the movie, but Tom Hanks stars in that movie News of the World or something, where I think that's what his job was to travel by horse to different cities.
Wow.
Or different, I don't know what you call them cities back then, but different areas, and just kind of make his way across the United States or whatever, and just kind of taking news to different people and just reading them the news or whatever.
Really? Wow,
yeah, crazy, like stuff. And that wasn't even, I don't think that long ago. That was probably in like the 1800s or something. I don't know what that time frame is. Anyway, I digress on that. But you go back, like the first few centuries or whatever, I mean, news could not travel quickly at all. So I think that's, yeah. So I think that's why they would call them April Fools if they were still celebrating the new year in April as opposed to January. Because at some point they switched it, because it used to fall in line. I know that this is the case, that it used to be that the new year was kind of at the transition between like I think the harvest season into the planting season, the harvest season into the sowing season or whatever, or vice versa, whatever it was. And so usually that would coincide with around the end of March or something like that. So I think that it was basically around, I don't know if it was always on the same day or if it would depend, but around the beginning of April is like, this is the new year. And so they switched it at one point, and they wanted it to kind of coincide. It's probably the Christians' fault. Like, they wanted it to coincide with the celebration of Christmas and all that kind of stuff. This was not worth even bringing up now, because
you're going a very long bunny trail.
But you know what I'm saying? So then they switched it, but not everybody knew that they switched it, and so you still had people celebrating New Year's on April 1st, and so they started calling them April Fools, and that's where we get April Fool's Day.
Interesting.
I think
it's a very long explanation to a very.
It's got to be at least 50% accurate. Fact check me, but
let's see.
So I was just gonna say, there's something cool happening right now. So and I've brought this up, and we've analyzed some clips on here from the Joe Rogan experience before, and I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan's podcast. So because he has these conversations oftentimes, so he has these long form conversations, and a lot of times, and increasingly so over the past couple of years, it's just been more and more conversations where the Bible comes up and Jesus comes up and all this kind of stuff. And you can see, I've been tracking this for like years. You just kind of see Joe's approach to the things of the Bible and conversations about God and about Jesus. He's gotten more and more sensitive and more open to the subject. You go back years ago on his podcast, he says some really kind of demeaning things toward the church and Christians and all that kind of stuff. And now he's very, very different in his approach. He used to say, I don't know if he ever called himself an atheist, but he was definitely like agnostic. He was definitely very like, kind of had the thought, if you're a religious person, you're probably brainwashed and you're like, you believe in fairy tales. Like it was just kind of like that. And to now he sees like a ton of merit in people that follow, that ascribe to Judeo-Christian values and that sort of thing. And he's had conversations with random people. Like, I mean, some of them, like Hulk Hogan was on his podcast, and they had a very, very deep discussion about Jesus. Kid Rock, he had like this really, I mean, Kid Rock probably witnessed to Joe Rogan more than anybody else that I've ever seen, which is funny because I've never seen somebody witnessing to somebody else dropping as many F-bombs and while drinking a Bud Light and all that like Kid Rock did. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And he even pointed that out. He's like, I can't believe I'm talking to somebody about Jesus while I'm drinking this beer. But anyway, but he literally, it was one of the coolest things because he said, he actually asked Joe, he's like, would you like to be introduced to Jesus? He asked him that on the podcast. Joe was like, well, like, I'm very fascinated by the concept of Jesus. Like, so he kind of takes it back to the, more of a consciousness type place and whatever. But then he said, I'll tell you, if Jesus came and interacted with me, I'd be stoked. And when he said that, I was like, oh, because like we all know that that's possible. And there's so many people around the world praying for Joe Rogan to have an experience with Jesus. And there's also been, this is what I'm getting to, there's also been this campaign for a long time now for Joe to have an actual guest on who can really stand up and like really deal with the tough questions and kind of like shoot down the misconceptions about the historicity of the Bible and the authenticity of scripture and when scripture was actually written. Because Joe, he brings this stuff up and he has these guests on and they talk about archaeological evidence and stuff like that. But Joe has this idea in his mind that the books of the Bible, the books of the New Testament, the Gospels were not written until like 300 or 400 years after Jesus. And that's just absolutely not true. Like they were written within, like Mark was probably written within 20 years. And at the most 40 years of the death of Jesus. And all of the books of the New Testament were written in the first century. So it's like the concepts that he has there. And so he has people on, and they've had some really deep conversations. And he's had Christians on that have brought stuff up, but he has not had a conversation with an actual like Christian apologetics expert. And until now. So this is what's really cool. Anyway, I was just going to say, there's been this campaign going on for a while to like have Joe interview somebody. There's been like a handful of names thrown around of people, like William Lane Craig would be a really good one. Like there's been some names thrown around of people that they would love to see Joe have on his podcast that are real, true, like Bible believing Christians, but they're also experts in that area of archaeological evidence and, you know, evidence for the historicity of the Bible and all that kind of stuff. And more importantly, or as importantly, at least, the resurrection of Jesus. And so Joe just interviewed this guy. We know that it happened. It's not aired yet. I was hoping it was going to come out today, January 1st, but it didn't. He just... Raekwon from Wu-Tang is the episode that came out today. But so probably by the end of this week, there's going to be this episode with Wes Huff. So Dr. Wes Huff is this guy who's a biblical apologist, and he's a very strong Christian. He's brilliant. He's an expert. He looks anyway like a younger guy. I don't know how old he is. He might be in his 40s, but he's He's an expert on all this stuff, the historicity of Scripture. And I know, so Ruslan is friends with him, and he said that they did talk about the resurrection of Jesus, and they talked about Jesus from the standpoint of like, you cannot look at Jesus as just a good man or a good teacher, which is what a lot of people that have been on Joe Rogan's podcast have tried to do. The reason this all started was because Joe interviewed this guy, Billy Carson, a while back. And then Billy Carson and this guy, Wes Huff, they had a debate. And this guy, Billy Carson, he's really not a Christian. He's done a lot of research into the archaeological stuff for like the Bible. And he's kind of a believer in this, I don't want to misrepresent him, but this like interconnectedness of all things. And he believes that Jesus was a real person who existed, a great man, all of that. But he's kind of got this theology that like we're all gods like little g gods. And he believes that ancient astronauts came to Earth. Like he's got some weird stuff. But he was on Joe Rogan and they talked about the Bible and all this, but it's like, that's not the guy that we want to do this. Like we want an actual like biblical apologist to be on his show and to talk about these things and to actually be on there. So this guy, Wes Huff, that did it, I'm really excited for this episode to come out for Joe, like to see like how the conversation actually went, but also because the fact that millions and millions of people are going to see this. And he's a guy that could really stand up to the difficult questions. And what's really cool about Joe Rogan is that he's a really good listener and he'll let you talk, whether he agrees with you or not. He'll let you talk. So really, I think it's really cool that this happened. It already happened, and probably be out within the next few days or something like that. And yeah, so I think we've just kind of seen Joe Rogan become more and more kind of like receptive to biblical things. And the fact that this guy was on there and actually talking about the most important element of this, which is the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. I think that's huge. And the other thing that's cool is this guy, he also has an experience of a supernatural healing that took place. Like he was a paraplegic as a teenager and was just miraculously healed. I don't even know if he was saved at the time. And I don't know if it involved laying on of hands or not. I really don't know. I don't know all the details, but I know that it was a medical anomaly that can't be explained. And so he's kind of got that like on his side too. So anyway, that's going down this week.
All right. So I guess your prediction for 225 is that Joe Rogan becomes a Christian?
I don't know. I thought about saying that, but I don't feel right about actually predicting that. I feel like I'm trying to be.
It'll be a year for him to believe, maybe.
Yeah.
Like one step closer to believing. Okay.
I believe it. I believe that he's getting there.
We shall see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we went full circle, I guess. 2025. Get excited.
Yeah, Happy New
Year. And just
keep it in Jesus.
Enjoy it.
Enjoy it. You know? Yep. What else?
Enjoy it. Have fun. Have a good laugh.
Yeah. Stay away from glitter.
Make memories.
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
That's it. All right. Love you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, review, share. We appreciate it so much. Thanks for hanging with us through 2024. And looking forward to an awesome new year.
Yay! Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.